There is something about high-end Seiko that I absolutely love. And I'm not talking about Grand Seiko, I am talking about Seiko branded watches that are high-end with spring drive movements, sapphire bezels, things like that. Today we're going to take a look at an SNR051, which is the Sky LX model. It's one of the highest end Seiko watches that you can buy, and it has one of the most beautiful dials of a Seiko that I have ever seen, whether it be a Grand Seiko or a Seiko. This is absolutely gorgeous. Let's flip the camera and take a look. Before we go on, I did want to mention that this watch was lent into the channel by ExquisiteTimepieces.com. They lend in watches from time to time, and I very much appreciate it. They allow me to choose the watches I would like to review here on the channel, and usually I am choosing some pretty cool watches like this LX. And they are an authorized dealer for all the brands that I talk about here on my channel, not only Seiko, but Omega and many of the other brands that I talk about. So definitely check out their website. I am not paid by them in any way, and they allow me to say whatever I want about watches. So they give me the freedom to really review watches, and I really do appreciate that. So definitely check out their website. I will put a link down in the description. So as Seiko go, this is a pretty big box. It's a very big lacquered wood box, and obviously, as I mentioned in the intro, this is sort of a high-end offering from Seiko. It's their LX line. It's a Prospex watch. It's a GMT. It gets a spring drive movement, and this is in celebration. This limited edition was in celebration of Seiko's involvement in space travel, and it's inspired by the moon. So the dial on here is actually inspired by the moon. Texturing is beautiful. The color is beautiful. Really, this is one of the best looking GMTs that I think I've ever seen or reviewed on my channel. And I have some pretty cool watches here. It comes in, basic Seiko packaging that's sort of pumped up, sort of upgraded. There's a little foam protectant here, and then it just says Seiko Prospex there, and then Prospex here. In here, it's just a little leather envelope. It just gives you a little bit of information on the special edition. Sorry, I said limited edition. This is a special edition. Just information on the watch. The sapphire crystal, the independent 24-hour hand, a little bit about the movement, the accuracy, plus or minus 1 second per day. This gets the 5R66, so that is a spring drive movement. It's a GMT movement. Essentially the same movement as the 9R version. However, it's just not as decorated as the 9R version because it's going into a Seiko. However, that doesn't mean it's any less of a movement. It's a little less accurate, I believe. However, that might be the only difference. Here is the watch. So you can see what I'm talking about. That dial is a silvery gray textured dial that's meant to look like the surface of the moon, and I have to say they really pull it off well. I'll do plenty of close-ups of this dial because it's worth it. It's beautiful. Then you have blue accents on here. So you have the power reserve that you always get with a spring drive movement. Love it or hate it, but it's right there. And you have a little blue hand on there, which looks really good. And then you have the GMT hand. Of course, that's also in blue. That's lumed. You also get Lume Bright on the hands, the indices, and the bezel. The bezel is a sapphire insert. And what you're getting here is sort of a two-tone bezel, but it's very subtle. Gray on the bottom of the bezel, as you can see here, but it's a dark gray. And then it's almost like an even darker gray. It's not a black. I wouldn't call it black, but it's almost black on the top portion. It's 24-hour bezel, and it is friction fitted and bi-directional, as you can see. Feels really smooth. Very nice action on here. Of course, it is a GMT, 24-hour bezel, 3 time zones, which is really good. The hands are sort of fence post hands, and as I mentioned, those are filled with lume, very bright lume on here. And then the counterbalance is lumed on the second hand, not the tip, so a little bit different from what you usually see. I think that works really well. This is made out of titanium, and it gets a super hard coating, so obviously you get a lot of nice polished edges on the case, like you do from Seiko. There is brushing, polishing. You get very nice treatment on the case that a lot of Seikos get that make it wear a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller than it actually is. And this is not a small watch. We'll do measurements in just a few minutes, but definitely not a small watch. Oyster style bracelet in titanium as well. Still get push pins on here. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But there is a little bit of a surprise in the buckle. The buckle looks pretty generic, right? However, there is micro adjust that's on the fly. Now, I was very surprised because they never advertise this sort of stuff. And there you go. So you get about, I don't know, what is that? Maybe 3 millimeters of adjustment, which is very, very useful. And the way it works is it's locked right now. You use the same pushers that you would use for unlocking the buckle when you have it on. Press both and pull in or pull out, depending on what you want to do. And that's it. I mean, honestly, that is so simple and so useful. This is a really good system. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this on any other Seiko. I haven't. And I've seen a lot of Seikos, but I've never seen this. I've never seen another LX in such depth. I've seen LX in the past. I've handled them, but I never got to play around with them. So once I noticed that this was a thing on here, I was very, very excited. Works really well, smooth, and it's so simple. Small little details like this make me very, very happy. The biggest detail on here that I love is the dial, as I mentioned. The dial is where it's at on this. And like I said, I'll do as many close-ups as possible because the dial is just beautiful. Anyway, very quickly, the measurements on here. This is a 45 millimeter watch. It's 44.7 millimeters. It wears a lot like my old watch that I just recently sold, the Planet Ocean. Now, the Planet Ocean is an awesome watch. However, it did wear very big. This does wear big, but it wears a little bit smaller than that watch did because it is a little bit smaller to begin with, but the dimensions are pretty big on this watch. So 50.5 millimeters lug to lug. You do get male end length, so the effective lug to lug, 52.7, so that's big. The crown on here is 6.8, not a bad size crown for a 44 millimeter watch, not bad I guess. 14.9 millimeters, so this is a thick watch and you only get 100 meters of water resistance. It is a true GMT, so what that means is, and some people hate that term, some people like that term, basically it's a traveler's GMT. So pop the crown, first position, and then all you need to do is advance the hour hand, and that's the local hour hand. Pop it again, and then the minute hand will move, and the GMT hand is tied to that while you change the time. And then of course you have the date. The date is changed by using that quick set hour hand. That's really it. And then in this position, in the pop position without pulling it out at all, you could wind the watch and you can see the power reserve is advancing there because this is basically like a direct drive. Direct drive is something that Seiko do for their kinetic watches. You could wind the watch and you will build the power reserve and you could see it building there. So when you put it on, if you haven't worn it in a while, wind it up and then you're good to go. The sapphire bezel, also another favorite part of this watch. I am going to be talking to exquisitemepieces.com who lent me this watch, as I mentioned before. I really want to have this watch in my collection. I'm in love with it. I think it is beautiful. It's light too. It's really not a very heavy watch. It's actually pretty light for how substantial the watch is. Anyway, very quickly, let me throw it on my wrist and then we will do a quick lume shot because the lume is really good on this watch. Price on here though, very quickly before we do that, is $5,500. That's why this is considered a high-end Seiko. It's expensive. You are getting a spring drive movement, the 5R66. You are getting sapphire bezel, obviously a sapphire crystal. You're getting titanium with a super hard coating. You're getting a beautiful textured dial. It's a GMT. It's a true GMT. So there's a lot going into this watch. But yes, that is expensive for a watch that just says Seiko on there and not Grand Seiko. Because you could actually get a Grand Seiko GMT in this neighborhood. Will it look as good? Not in my opinion. I think this is one of the best looking Seiko GMTs that money can buy, in my opinion. Now there are other Seiko GMTs out there that are pretty good looking. From the Presage lineup, they make a GMT that has a 6R movement, but the 6R movement's pretty good and it's a true GMT. This is just taking it up a complete notch from that, maybe 3 notches. I just think it's beautiful. Anyway, very quickly, let me show you what I have on my wrist. Today, I have a very thick watch, a watch that wears probably bigger than this watch does. This is my Mad 1, and it's a thick watch. I think it's like 17 millimeters thick, somewhere in that neighborhood. As you can see, it wears very, very big. Pretty awesome watch though. And here it is. So this actually wears very similar, a little bit bigger than my SBDC061. It also has a very similar case, inspired by the same watch really, because both of those watches are inspired by the Marine Master, but it's inspired by a historic watch, which the Marine Master was inspired by, which this watch is inspired by, which the SBDC061 is inspired by. So the inspiration is there. It wears very similar. You have the crown at the 4 o'clock position. A lot of similarities. Very good looking watch. Really light on the wrist because of the titanium. Some of the best AR coating too. Look at that. You cannot see any reflection. When I was doing macro of this, it was so easy because the AR coating on that flat sapphire crystal really is good. One of the best I have seen. Crystal clear. Anyway, very quickly, a quick Lume shot. So Lume Bright with a sapphire bezel and a fully Lume bezel is obviously an incredible combination. Lume Bright already very, very bright Lume. Usually Seiko do a great job with Lume because Lume Bright is very bright and they liberally apply it. You could see this is a flashlight. They did a great job. It's very crisp and clean. Just a really good looking watch in my opinion. And when I was listing all the reasons why this is a great watch before, I did forget to mention that this does have on-the-fly micro adjust also, which is incredible. I really find that pretty incredible. I've never seen a Seiko with that, as I mentioned. I've seen Seikos with micro adjust, like a Marine Master with that horrible sort of extension that they use, and there's other micro adjusts that are manual, but never on the fly like that. And such a simple system. It really does work well. I'm sure other people have seen this before. I'm just my first time seeing it really on an LX, and it's just awesome. Anyway, tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of this watch? It's a special edition. I think that means that they are still making this, and it is not a limited edition. However, if you look at their website, I don't think this watch is on their website anymore. It is available at exquisitetimepieces.com. If you are interested, link in the description down below. Definitely check out their website because they are an authorized dealer of Seiko, Grand Seiko. They carry everything. So if you're interested in this Seiko or maybe another Seiko, check them out. They will have it. And they are really very, very good at shipping, very fast, and all of that good stuff. So tell me in the description below, what do you think of this watch? I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.